Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Three Bones YouTube channel. I am Tiffany Bryant-Jackson, Education Manager, and I'm here with our community partner for Confederates. We are talking with Kamille from the Center of Racial Equity in Education, or CREED. They are fantastic partners for this show, and we just want to have a conversation so you understand why they're a fantastic show. Kamille, if you want to take a few moments and tell us about your role in programming there, and then what you all do as a whole.
All right. Hi, everybody. Hi, Tiffany. Thank you for having us. I'm Kamille Bostick, the Director of Programming here at CREED. And CREED, the Center for Racial Equity in Education, is a nonprofit organization. We are statewide for the state of North Carolina. Created from in 2019, our Executive Director, Dr. James E. Ford, was the 2014 Teacher of the Year for North Carolina. He had traveled around the state, kind of doing the tour that Teachers of the Year do, and was really noticing that as he went from place to place, there are so many inequities that are showing up in how our education system is serving or actually underserving students of color. And the idea of actually pinpointing race as the culprit behind that, people are a little bit uncomfortable saying that and actually making that connection. So he made it his work to say, let's actually raise up the idea that race is a factor. It does matter. It doesn't need to matter. It should not matter. But if we can't address the problem if we don't actually name it and then actually work to change it. So CREES has been established since 2019. Our goal to build engagement with like-minded folks in the school systems, folks who are working in policy advocacy, activism, and say, like, what can we do to work together to create change, and thinking also, how do we actually implement better policy? Our big goal is to close the knowing doing gap. There are folks who have great ideas, great solutions, but how do you get that to the people who actually impart it, whether that's policymakers, teachers themselves, empowering parents? CREED is here for all of that. And so a lot of our programming goes from pre-K through college. And our big idea is, so can we improve the outcomes of students of color so that race no longer matters? And in a way of doing that, we have lots of things that look at the diversity of teacher educators, the diversity of school board representatives, and the diversity of the curriculum. So that's kind of where you'll see us putting our fingertips into it, which is why we're excited to kind of be with y'all for Confederates as a community partner.
I love it. And as you mentioned, you guys do a lot of work pre-K through college. And in this particular show, we're in two settings, one of which is a college institution, but the other setting, which is on a plantation, does have some conversation around who has the ability to read, who is allowed to, as what's the time. So I love the fact that you said, let's name the thing, because we can see when we travel back that was the barrier. You could not get an education. And as the years have gone on, systems have been built in a way that does not really give everyone an opportunity to catch up, for lack of better words. So you've had a chance to read the show, so I'm sure you've noticed some parallels between maybe some of the people you all work with and some of the characters in the show. How is that facing that when watching or reading the script?
Oh, I think it was great. And well, great in a way that it was illuminated in the show, but also sad that it exists in the world, taking it back to what was happening with a couple of the characters who are enslaved, and several of whom can read or are learning to read in a time where anti-literacy laws would have been on the books, where it would have been actually illegal. You could get in North Carolina 39 lashes for teaching a enslaved person how to read if you were enslaved, or a $200 fine if you were white. So this concept of literacy definitely connects to us, because we realize today in education that Black students of color are chronically testing lower when it comes to like their proficiency rates in reading, and it's only because of that kind of continued lack of education in a way, and process to it. And so the idea that literacy has long been tied to liberation, we see that happening in the actual story itself, where because the characters can read, like, it gives her a way to connect to the kind of insurgency that is happening around her at the start of the Civil War. And so that's very powerful, but you also understand like the threat that that would have posed. People were killed. I mentioned that you could get 39 lashes. You could also be killed, right? For the idea that an educated kind of Black populace at that time would have been seen as a threat, because from the Stono Rebellion in 1739 in South Carolina, where literate Black folks were actually creating insurrections, they're like, oh, we can't allow Black folks to be able to read, or things might happen. And so Creed definitely works with this idea that the past definitely informs what we're seeing right now. And so wanted to just kind of pause and say that was a parallel that I noticed right away. Like we're seeing this stuff with literacy and anti-literacy kind of play out. I think another thing that speaks to kind of the present day situation that audiences will see in the show with our professor of higher education, she's a Black female, working, trying very hard. A lot of what we hear Black educators tell us is that, and this is at all levels from like elementary school through the college level, is that there is kind of this double burden of like, you are expected to be the teacher. Like you need to know your content, but you also need to understand like your students, particularly your own students of color, and the things that they need so they can thrive in a world that helps them understand that they belong in spaces, that they are in an education system that can be very, very hostile, from everything from what you're learning to how it's taught to you. Like they need to have that kind of safe space to thrive. And that doesn't always happen. And in the point where you see there are so few teachers of color out there. I think the teaching force K through 12 is mostly 80% white female. And when you get into higher education, I think it's 2% Black females who are professors, public or private school at this point. So such a small amount of folks who are doing that work, that when students see you, they were like, oh, I see somebody who looks like me. Well, then what does that have you as the educator having to do? Like, can you take in all of that? Are you supposed to kind of nurture it? Like, what is that tension between I have the kind of academic role, but I also have like the mentoring role, the supporting role, because there's so many kind of flaws in the systems itself that teach our students. So Cree believes in making sure that we are promoting and supporting educators of color to say, like, we do see you, we understand that struggle, we want more of you in the spaces. How can we get that? How can we retain you more so you're not feeling all that stress all the time, and building in those supports. So I think
I
that's
like
kind of
that
what.
you brought up like the percentage of teachers, especially women of color, in the classroom, because I do remember a few years back, I was working in a workshop and someone said, can you remember the first time you had a teacher who looked like you? And I was like, man. And I had to think really hard. And it wasn't until high school that I had a teacher that looked like me. And they did do some nurturing in a way that was beautiful. But you're right, that is a lot of pressure because you have your own personal self to look after, your career to look after. But knowing, and I have a sense where that push came from them, knowing that push felt necessary to them to get to the next level. And I think back on that all the time. I was middle class, so their push wasn't moving me out of poverty per se. For them, it was, we see where you can go and we need you to bump it. But even that was work for them. And I can't imagine if they were working in Title I schools or lower income levels where there are more barriers than just education. So that's a lot of pressure. So I know you guys kind of build communities of teachers. You guys work on legislation. What else do you all do?
We also do a few things. We just started a new initiative with youth themselves, helping them be empowered about their kind of advocacy in their own kind of school spaces. And I think, for the most part, we have different coalitions. We work with other folks throughout the state who are, really dedicated to this idea of education equity and education justice. And so doing a lot of kind of coalition building with that. And we have an initiative with the HBCUs in the state that we pull them together and kind of have great conversations and understand all sorts of things. So it's a lot of networking, I think is what we would call it. And a lot of district work too. We do professional development with teachers when necessary, and public programming. So there'll be things like social media campaigns people folks can be a part of, and some book clubs later in the summer.
Listen, I love a good book club. Back when I did a lot of DEI work at my previous job, I utilized book clubs as a way to hold conversation with adults. We did a lot of nonfiction. With students, we did a lot of fiction, but in worlds that they were unfamiliar with, so they had to like think out loud about experiences. So you let me know when that book club happens, and
I
I
can't
am
wait. I
like,
love it.
let me in. So if someone is watching this right now, number one, this is my plug. If you are watching this and you have not bought your tickets yet, this is your second reminder from me directly to do that, because the show will sell out and you will be very upset if you miss it. So that's for me. But Kamille, if they are watching this right now, they're going to get their tickets to the show, but they want to do more, get more involved with Creed. How do they do that?
Great. You can follow us on our socials. We're at Creed-NC. Well, I think it might be underscore. I got to get it right, y'all. We'll put it someplace. But if you want to find us online, it's Creed-NC.org for sure. All things posted there. And we just launched the podcast version, kind of audio version of our publication called Deep Rooted. It looks at the history of public education and its intersection with race in North Carolina. So I think if you are a person who's interested in that, you know, connection between past and present, like listening to that in your car or wherever you find our podcast will be really, really great. So get at us, y'all,
I love
creed-nc.org.
that it is now in podcast form. I did download a toolkit from you all the other day for teachers in the classroom. So I would encourage everyone to go to their website and check out what they have. In many ways, you can plug in. You don't have to be the educator. You can be a parent involved in wanting to get resources to your educator, launching the youth program, giving your children a way to advocate for themselves. I think it's something powerful that historically our kids were not allowed to do, and now
Yes.
they can, but it is a delicate line because the way the institutions have been set up, how they are heard is very different. Final question, if you have someone watching the show and you want them to walk away feeling something, wanting something, what would you say that would be?
That's a great question. Um, I would say walk away with the spirit that the ancestors are still working through us, right? There's connections, and this work is unfinished, and there's so many people who are still at it. So join with somebody good like a Creed or whoever else, and let's push for the things that we know our teachers need, our students need, our education system needs.
I love that you said the work is unfinished, and I think that's wholeheartedly true as a movement in education and as a movement of people of color in this country. But in North Carolina, there's so much history around barriers and how our city was built, specifically in Charlotte, where the show is happening, where history isn't that far away. It's not as far away as we
Yes.
think it is. And so it's not unfinished because it was just like, I remind people, Ruby Bridges, if you look at what her age is, you're like, huh. So yes, plug in, get to know everyone, and help the work get done. Kamille, thank you for taking
Thank
some
you.
time out. I will also know if you're seeing the show, there will also be a community table where you can also gather more information on Creed in the lobby. So this will not be the first or last time we talk about this community partner, but we want you to plug in and get your tickets to the show and have some conversations with your students, the teachers in your students' lives, your local reps. It doesn't stop. It never stops. Thank you so much, Kamille, for taking the time today.
Thank
I
y'all.
truly, truly appreciate you and Creed for partnering with us on this show. Those of you on YouTube, we'll see you for the next discussion, but stop this play and go buy your tickets if you haven't already. All right, see you guys next time.